Hi everyone. I'm so sorry for the break in transmission. I had to quickly go do some stuff. I apologize for that. And also, I thank you so much, Aisha, for letting me know that I was not recording. I totally forgot. So let's just quickly breeze through this thing again because I didn't record the last one, and I would not feel nice if I didn't record this one. So we're going to be looking at user manuals, guides, and documentation in technical writing in this class. Right. So user manuals, guides, and documentation serve as crucial tools that bridge the gap between complex, intricate products, systems, or software and the end users who seek to understand and operate them effectively. Right. So a user manual is a document that provides comprehensive information about a product, system, or software, right? It guides users on how to set up, operate, maintain, troubleshoot, and potentially repair the item in question. Like when you buy a fan, an air conditioner, a TV, things like that. So user manuals comes with such products, and recently most of these products and companies now host these manuals online too, right? So the manuals guide you how to set up the remote, set up the TV, the laptop, um, whatever it may be, or even the software, right? Even the Windows installation also comes with a user manual. Yes. So user manuals are typically organized sequentially, offering step-by-step instructions, and often including visual aids such as diagrams or illustrations that describe, okay, plug this in here, put this here, click this button. So visual aids such as diagram and illustrations are very common in user manuals. So user guides are similar to user manuals, but they are usually concise documents that focus on specific aspects of a product or software, providing targeted instructions, right? So they usually cover topics like getting started, advanced features. For example, if your TV had like a feature that not everyone uses, right? It will not make sense for the company to include that in the user manual because that would be too much details, right? So if you need to read about that, you can get like a user guide. User guides come in small booklets in like hardware products, right? But in documentation, they usually have like a different page for the user guides on the documentation. So when you need to troubleshoot, read about advanced features, you got user guides are what you use, right? So I'm talking too fast, sorry. So user guides are usually designed to be user-friendly and easy to navigate, making them a quick reference for users seeking specific information. So you want to write a user guide in a way that people can easily find whatever they are looking for. We talked about the um those fundamentals in the previous classes too. So documentation is like the broad term that can be used to describe all written materials related to a product, system, or software, right? This includes user manuals and user guides, as we've seen, release notes, online help, frequently asked questions, and much more, right? Documentation aims to provide users with the information they need to use a product effectively, answer their questions, and address any issue that may arise, right? So let's look at some of the benefits of user manuals, guides, and documentation in technical writing. The first one is enhanced user experience, right? Clear and well-structured documentation ensures that users can easily understand and operate a product, use the software, troubleshoot their problems and things like that, right? So this leads to a more positive user experience, reducing frustration and increasing user satisfaction, right? So reduce support costs. Comprehensive documentation can significantly decrease the number of user inquiries and support requests, right? So when users can find answers to their questions in the documentation, it reduces the workload on customer support teams and lower associated costs. So imagine a company like Flutterwave or Paystack not having a documentation, right? That means they need to hire like millions, thousands of or even millions of people to handle their user, right? Because they have millions of users that need to use their product, right? And that's even assuming they don't have competitors, right? So if they didn't have a documentation, it would have been a whole different story because everyone has to like reach out to the support to do every little thing. So that doesn't make any sense. Documentation helps in this case, right? So you can just get 2 or 3 people to manage millions of users easily because you know that your documentation is more than enough for anyone and everyone to use to um, make use of your product, right? So the next one is improved product adoption. Well-crafted user guides and manuals can accelerate the adoption of new products or software, right? Users are more likely to embrace and effectively utilize the product when they have access to clear instructions and resources, right? You know, I mentioned earlier that if a company like Flutter or Paystack does not have a documentation, they would not have any customer, right? Like no one will use the product because they can always get another company that has documentation, right? So when people know that you have clear and well-crafted guides for them to use to utilize your product, they find they are more comfortable and rest assured that okay, they can get whatever they need to do done faster. And one thing you should always keep in mind when writing is that technology exists to make things easier. So anything that is making things hard for your customers, you need to eliminate it, right? So this is where documentation comes in. The next one on the list is I would like to say if you can't hear me properly at any point in time, please unmute yourself and tell me. Thanks. Legal and regulatory compliance. So certain industries and products require documentation to comply with legal or regulatory requirements. Like for Paystack and Flutterwave, they need to like document their processes and give it to regulators to go through to make sure that okay, these guys are following the proper they are complying with the regulatory requirements and they are not breaking any laws, right? So failure to provide adequate documentation can lead to legal liabilities and consequences. You might have heard that Facebook getting sued or getting sued for data mining or related issues like that. So when you release documents to regulators or even the public in some cases, for example, if you are working on a product that's like a therapy product, every single information you get from your users, you need to provide a detailed documentation on how you are using the data and why you need to collect those data from them for your product or your service to be able to work properly, right? So the next one is knowledge preservation. Documentation serves as a knowledge repository for organizations, right? It captures valuable information about product development, maintenance, and usage, which ensures that knowledge is not lost when employees leave or retire, right? So maybe a Flutter does not have a documentation and one of their early stage engineers leave the team or leave the company. It will make it very, very hard for them to get other like new employees or even current employees on board, because there's not enough information for them to work, because the person that left had everything in their head and did not document anything. So documentation helps you preserve knowledge. So you can just revisit and reuse them as much as you want. So the other one is brand reputation, which is closely related to improved product adoption, right? High quality documentation reflects positively on a company's brand, which is why it is easy for companies like Flutterwave to launch new products easily, because people already trust that these guys have solid documentation. So let's just use them for this other thing we are trying to do. Let's use the tool or the product they are offering to do what we want to do, because we know that our developers can work with their documentation and get things done fast. So having high quality documentation reflects positively on your brand. So because it documents, it demonstrates a commitment to customer satisfaction and professionalism, which enhance the company's reputation, right? So some tips and strategies that you can use to write user manuals and guides and documentation. So the first one is, as always, know your audience, right? Understanding your target audience for each document is paramount and very, very important, right? So you need to consider their level of expertise, familiarity with the product or system, and specific needs. We talked about this in the audience analysis class. Tailor your documentation to meet their requirements. That's like key. You need to like know your audience and tailor your documentation to meet their requirements or their needs, right? Define your objectives. So every piece of documentation you need to write for your product or your software needs to serve a purpose, right? So you need to determine the goals of your documentation. You need to consider questions like, are you creating a user manual for a complex industrial machine, a quick start guide for a software project or software product, or an FAQ, frequently asked questions document for a consumer product, right? So you need to clearly define your objectives to guide your writing process. So the next one is you need to organize the contents. Organize your documentation logically, following a structured outline that you typically get from a style guide, right? Start with an introduction that provides an overview of the product or system, then break down the content into sections or chapters that cover different topics or tasks, right? You can use headings, subheadings, table of contents, and others to help users navigate the content, right? So you need to write clearly and concisely. So use clear and straightforward language, avoid jargon and technical terms or unless they are necessary and explained, right? Use active voice and provide specific instructions. Include visual aids such as diagrams, screenshots, and illustrations to enhance comprehension, right? So you need to address common questions and issues. So anticipate the common user questions and issues and address them in your documentation. This includes writing a troubleshooting guide for a particular problem that you notice that has been coming up a lot, updating the FAQ with, or even creating a whole new one with frequently asked questions, obviously, and tips to help users resolve problems independently. Right. So keep it up to date. Any form of documentation you write should evolve with the product, right? Once you update the product, you need to update the documentation, right? So regularly update your user manuals, guides, and documentation to reflect changes, improvements, or even new features. Outdated documentation can lead to confusion and frustration because they don't know if it's outdated, because usually documentation, unlike articles, blogs, and tutorials that we discussed in the previous class, do not come with published dates most times. But these days is becoming more popular to include the last updated dates for documentations. Most documentation websites now have that, but outdated documentation leads to confusion and frustration, because I might be using the documentation to perform a particular task and I'm getting all these errors, and I'm rereading and rereading to make sure that I'm not missing anything, and I still keep getting the errors. So I get frustrated and just abandon the documentation or even the product entirely, right? So strategies and best practices for user manuals, guides, and documentation. I don't know why I keep having this session, but you should use a consistent style and format, right? Maintain consistency in your writing style, formatting, and design throughout your documentation, because a unified look and feel make it easier for users to navigate and understand the material. Secondly, prioritize clarity and simplicity, as we talked about in the previous section. Clarity should be your top priority, right? You should write in a manner that a user with no prior knowledge of the product can understand. And in this case, user manuals. This applies to user manuals a lot. Sorry about that. So you should also avoid unnecessary complexity or verbosity. So that means just removing anything that is not necessary for the user to know, right? Provide contextual help. Include context sensitive help within software or systems, right? This means offering users relevant information at the exact point where they need it, minimizing disruptions to their workflow, right? In most cases, user manuals follow this guide that it goes like step by step. Like you have step one, step two, step three, step four, right? So they know where they are, they know what next to do, which makes the workflow of whatever they are trying to do seamless. So they know that, okay, I need to set up a database before seeding data into the database, right? So things like that. So you should also consider offering multiple formats, right? Majority of software documentation can be downloaded in PDF formats. Most software, especially programming languages, documentation, right? I remember downloading the full documentation of Solidity in one single PDF. So it's very common. So you should consider that. Offer your documentation in multiple formats: PDF, web-based help, printable versions, to accommodate different user preferences and needs. We also talked about this in previous classes, right? So create a knowledge base. You should try to build and maintain a knowledge base as a centralized repository for all documentation, right? Every documentation you write should have a page on your website. Even if you print, uh, even if you printed the documentation, you still need to like create a centralized repository for the documentation, because this makes it easy for users to search for and access the information they need. The last one on the list, I believe, is incorporating feedback mechanism. I've repeated this a lot, and by now you should understand that this is very, very important, right? So allow users to provide feedback on the documentation, whether through comments, ratings, or surveys. This is very common with every documentation I've ever read. They usually do this. Even programming language framework such as Vue.js, React, and so on, they organize surveys twice or once a year, right, to understand like what they should do, how they should improve the product, how they should improve the documentation, common issues people face, and all of that. So it will guide them to know what to create next. Like, okay, they might conduct a survey and organize the frequently asked questions in the survey to create a frequently asked questions section, or even a full page in their documentation, right? So you should use this feedback to continuously improve your documentation, right? So that will be the end of today's session, right? So we've done every single thing you need to learn. We've gone through everything you need to learn. If there's anything you feel like have not covered and we've not talked about, you should let me know in the chat box. Like, you can consider week 1 to now everything we've done, right? So these are your to-dos for the next before the next class, right? No, not before the next class, but I just wanted to tell you this so um you keep them in mind. So first one is you try to do a review of everything you've learned so far from week 1 to today. All right, use the slides to review everything you've learned. The next one is assessing your expertise. Think about what you know, your field, what you can write about, like everything you know, be it technical or non-technical, right? But try to make it technical or complex enough to be able to pass as a technical content. Because if you remember, technical writing is basically just simplifying complex concepts in easy to understand language for people to use and understand, right? So the third one is try to think about 5 topics and describe them in detail. So 5 topics you can write an in-depth blog article or tutorial on, because the next week curriculum is basically work. We're going to be doing research, drafting, outlining, writing and editing, reviewing your content. So you're going to write your first technical article in this training next week, right? So by Friday, I would want a list of the topics you've thought about and their descriptions, right? So just you have the slide, just do that. Let me know if you don't understand anything I've said so far in this class, right, in the chat box. Aisha, can you drop the documentation? I said documentation. The attendance form, please, so they can fill. Sorry guys for the repetition and all of that. And yes, I almost forgot. So most of you have reached out to me about like learning the business of technical writing, how to price your articles, how to pitch, how to do like a lot of things, right? So what I would say is the next class is going to be for, we still have one more class for this week. And I mentioned earlier that we've done everything we are going to be covering in this class. Because if you even notice, this class is like a repetition of what we've covered, but in a way that it relates to documentation, right? So I want you to think about, I will add it to this list. Think about all the questions you want me to answer, compile them and send them to me on Zoom, right? Anything you want to know about the business of technical writing, pricing your articles, pitching, like, because I don't really know how to, I can answer your questions, right? But I don't really know how to put them together. So, and a lot of people have different questions. There's no one size fits all for the answers I'm going to give. So it's better we do it as a discussion instead of, okay, Melissa, I'm going to do that. So it's better we do it as a discussion in the next class. So bring your questions, anything you want me to answer about technical writing, anything at all, might be about things we've done too. So just reach out to me. So I just dropped the attendance link. So do well to fill that up. Okay, Mr. Okoro Anointing has a question. Please, while describing the topics, what are the vital information we should capture? Or should we just use our initiative? Mm, yeah, so this is not the outlining phase, which you need to write a lot of detail about what you want to write about, right? So just list them and describe them in one paragraph. Should not be longer than one paragraph. So each description of each topic should not be longer than one paragraph. I hope that answers your question, Mr. Koran. Okay. Chukwuebuka said, if I get it correctly, we should only forward our topics and possible questions that we have about the business of technical writing to you, right? Yes, you should do that on Zoom so I can compile them and just make them the focus of next class. Okay. Hmm. Victor, yeah, you're welcome, Okoro Anthony. Anointing, sorry. Victor said, is it acceptable to use AI for technical writing? Please, on my hand, the form is no longer accepting responses. I'm not sure Aishat is on this call, but I'm coming back to your question. Um, Aishat, kindly um, check the chat box for questions regarding the attendance link. Some people are not seeing it, and some are saying it's no longer accepting responses. So please check that out. Thanks. Okay, it's being resolved. Just give give us a few minutes to sort that out. So Victor said, is it acceptable to use AI for technical writing? Um, it is not acceptable as at now, but I believe in the long run it's going to be acceptable because at the end of the day, it's just a tool for you to use to get up and running easily and write faster. But for now, you should try to stay away from using AI, especially if you're getting paid for the for the content. It can lead to like rejection of the content. So you should try not to use AI. And even if you use AI, you should edit the life out of whatever it gives you and just insert your own your own style, your own unique voice to make it human like there's a way. If you read certain contents, you know from the get-go that this is AI, right? This is AI. You already know. You might not know, but when you are exposed to it more and more, you start noticing a pattern, which is what a lot of technical editors look out for. So you should just have your own unique style, like I mentioned in the previous class. It was not recorded, sorry about that. But I basically said develop your own unique style and insert it in whatever you write about, except in cases when you're writing like a documentation. So documentations are usually rigid in the sense that you don't need to add like any unique style, except maybe your company's style guide, defined style guide, right? So you should always have your own voice in your article. Read it out loud. This is a this is a common thing that I read in guidelines for technical content requirements these days. They write something along the lines like read it out loud, and so you can notice when, sorry about that, you can notice when it's sounding robotic, and you can just tweak that part to make it sound more human-like and sensible, because most technical people can pick that, okay, this is AI, right? So just try to edit whatever AI gives you, edit it, because I cannot tell you not to use AI. In fact, the previous assignment, a lot of you guys used AI. It was written all over the answers. So that's one thing I've noticed. So most of you use the AI. So it's something that it's just glaring most times and gives me headache now that I work as a technical editor, because once I see the article, I just feel like, what is this? Just edit this. Edit the responses, for God's sake. Because why am I reviewing your article and I told you to write a conclusion, and within 3 minutes you pasted a 4-paragraph content into the article as a conclusion? Like I had to like rewrite that conclusion, because I don't want that to feel bad, like you used AI, why did you use AI and all of that, but it's glaring, like it's obvious. Don't do it. So please make it easier on your editors or even your readers to just not use AI recklessly, I would say, for lack of a better word. Right. So I've been ranting about this AI issue because it's very common and it's just too much these days. So just take it easy on ChatGPT. You guys should calm down. Ah. So yeah, I hope that answers your question. Um, Victoria Victor, I think. So if you have any other question, just drop it in the chat box or mute yourself and speak. So Blessing asks that is it to do another assignment to be submitted on Friday? No, because um doing a review of everything you've learned is like a personal thing you need to do on your own. Just a suggestion, but you should try to do it, right? It will help you when we are working on your first article next week. And assessing your expertise is just asking yourself certain questions like, Victor, please give me a minute. I'll let you know when you can speak. Assessing your expertise is just maybe thinking about what you know, thinking about like every complex concept that you know, that okay, this thing is not common knowledge. I know how to set up a database on Amazon Web Services. I know how to build this. I know how to do this. So just assess everything you can do that relates to tech. Then after assessing your expertise, list and describe 5 topics you can write an in-depth blog, article, or tutorial about. Right? It's just my way of telling you to prepare for next week, essentially, because I know that next week, yeah, I cannot just come on Monday and tell you, okay, go and bring 5 topics. Takes a while, because the last time I had such assignments, because it's why I'm asking you to do this is that it's very common when you apply to companies for a technical writing role. So they ask you for this. I've done it twice. So they gave me like 5 days to come up with that. So that's what I'm telling you in advance. So I didn't just come on Monday and tell you, okay, go and bring 5 topics, so without giving you any heads up. So that's the essence of the to do. Then I'm going to add something else as number 4 to the slide. So the fourth one is essentially what's it again? I've forgotten. Yeah, the business of technical writing. Any question you have about real world technical writing, how it's like working as a technical writer, how I price articles, projects. So any question you have at all, just bring it. So we can tackle it on Friday, because there will be no slide on Friday. So it's just me, and it will just be me answering the questions you guys sent to me in my DM. Oh, okay. Just send the questions to my DM. Most of you have access now. Okay, Victor, please, you can unmute yourself now. Please unmute yourself again.
Okay. So yeah, I just want to be sure I understood your response to the question I asked about using AI. So you're saying that it can be used, but then we should ensure that we don't just lift it verbatim and put this in our document. That's what you're saying, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Because when you just lift it, it will be very, very obvious. And an AI content does not seem to get the work done most times, because it just confuses people more in most cases, which is why companies are like very, very specific on you not using AI. But we all know that it's it's virtually impossible for people not to use it. So just use it sparingly and don't just lift it. When I use I use AI in some cases, right? And when I use it, I like rewrite it that it's not recognizable 80%. Like when I get a response from AI, it's just like the AI giving me an idea of how to frame my thoughts, or giving me the thoughts, then I'll decide how I want to frame it, how I want to present it to the reader, right? So just use it sparingly in articles. don't ever lift AI content and just put it in your documents. It doesn't make any sense. And just read your article or your content of the credibility you're supposed to get. So that is that for the. I hope you understand me clearly now, Victoria.
Yeah, it's clear. I was actually looking at it from the point of using it as an assistive tool in my writing, and of course, not
Exactly.
just to use exactly what is there.
Exactly. I'm glad.
Oh yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Um, any other question? Please, leave a
Hello.
summary fortune.
Yeah. So the 5 topics we're supposed to like come up with, yeah.
Yes.
Is it I don't know. Are we supposed to like pick random topics about anything basically, or it needs to be like a documentation for a project or something? I don't know if you understand.
Okay, let me answer that. And I think a lot of you guys have questions about this to do that you are seeing on your screen. So if you have any question at all, just unmute yourself and speak. Right. So to answer your question, Sumachi, if you notice, the second step is assessing your expertise. Right. So just think about things you've done before that can be documented in form of a blog, an article, or a tutorial, right? For example, if you've built, even if it's a to-do list in JavaScript before, that's a topic. So if you've struggled with understanding this particular concept, after, like, when you assess your expertise, you might feel like, oh, I struggled with pointers when I was learning how to use Go or Python or JavaScript. So you can just think of those situations you've been in and try to remember how you solve them. Then you can list the idea as a potential topic that you can choose from. I hope that answers your question. So much for you.
Yeah, it answers my question. So I could like talk about I could give like a description about any application, any
Yes,
topic, something like that.
yes, yes, actually, but you guys should refrain from topics like how to use Google Docs or things like that, please. I've seen a lot of that. Or how to use Google Chrome. Just don't do that, right? But anything at all is fine. But don't do things like how to use Google Chrome. Like, it has to be complex enough that you know that people are going to be interested in this, right? For example, when I got the this task to like describe 5 topics I can write about, so for me to send to them, then they'll pick one and send to me. So I'll write an article on that particular topic. What I did was I went into, this was when I just started, right? So I went into my groups, my tech groups and all of that to ask people. So I basically just sent a text like, what are the JavaScript concepts that you struggled or are still struggling to understand, right? So I just sent that particular text to like 6 groups. Then I got few responses. Oh, I struggled with objects, classes, encapsulation, things like that. Then I just reviewed the responses and I selected the ones that I know that I will be able to write an in-depth article about. So I selected the 5 best ones that are very, very complex, by the way. So the 5 complex ones, most complex ones that I know I understand. So I wrote a description for each of them. I created a topic too because the responses won't come in like in form of a topic. Just it came in form of, okay, oh, I saw Shege when I was writing, when I was learning how to use um classes in JavaScript. Pointers showed me Shege, encapsulation did this, that's right. So I went through the responses, selected the ones I know that I can write about, created the topic for each of them. Like for the one I finally wrote about was encapsulation in JavaScript. So it was about modules in JavaScript. So that was like a very, very, very complex concept that I almost did not find any article about it. Right. So I felt like that would be a great like topic to write about. Then I selected 4 other ones, described them. So the description would just be like what you would talk about. Like, okay, I'm going to explain this encapsulation to intermediate developers that want to be able to break down their code into modules and just basically helping them to structure it. Then did that for the 4 other ones. I'll look for the email I sent back and I'll just paste it on the Zoom group so you guys can just tap from the ideas. And I'll tell you about the ones I've not written about, so you can steal that too. If you know you understand it, you can just write about it. Because after sending the articles in, I later used the other topics to pitch to like other companies, other blogs to write about the topics for them. So yeah, I hope that answers your question so much.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
You're welcome. So if you have a question, just drop a message or mute yourself and let's talk about it. Kindly drop a message in the chat box if you've filled the attendance form. So Blessing said, so all 5 topics were on JavaScript. Yes, and that was because, when I filled the form, the application form for the role, they asked like, what are the programming languages you are proficient in? Then JavaScript was one of them because I write JavaScript and PHP then. So now I write 3 languages, JavaScript, PHP, and Go. But then it was just JavaScript and PHP. So they chose JavaScript and told me to list 5 documents, 5 topics and description of each. So if you have any questions, let me know. And if you fill the attendance form too, just drop a message. I'm sure that everyone has filled it before ending the meeting or the call. So let me. Blessing said, meaning proficiency in a programming language is a requirement for a technical writing role. For that particular role, yes, but it's not in most cases. It's not in most, it depends on the role. but even Google does not have like that requirement. So for Google not to require programming language as a requirement, proficiency in programming language as a requirement, you know that it's not very, very necessary. Just be able to communicate well verbally and in writing. So, but in writing is the most important one. But if you want to like stack up your money or your funds or be more valuable, you should try to add like verbal proficiency in English to your skills, so you can apply for roles like creating video or technical tutorials. Video tutorials that you just like do a voiceover for because it's actually a like very, very lucrative role. So like you get an average of 500 USD for a video for most of the roles I've seen. So yeah, but that requires having a YouTube channel, like having some kind of proof of work, obviously, because that's the way to get ahead in this industry. Have a proof of your work plastered everywhere, your socials, your LinkedIn, and you're good to go. So Ridwan said, is this to do restricted to only programming languages? No. So you guys should pay more attention to the second one, which is assessing your expertise. So this is about what you know and what you can write about. Your expertise, what you know, what you've done. If you've integrated Paystack on a WordPress site, on a JavaScript site, you've used Flutterwave to build a feature for an application, anything at all. And other things like anything, basically anything, anything, because the first day of this training, we talked about our experiences. That is the attendance link, not yet. So I noticed that a lot of people don't have technical expertise, right? So your writing can also be about your specific roles. Someone said she lectures, like she's a mathematics lecturer or something. So it can be something like that. Anything you know about, just list it out, because obviously I don't expect you to like have solid technical or programming language knowledge. So anything you can write about is fine. This is your first article. You're also going to be creating accounts on sites like Dev2, Ashnode next week. Elizabeth Momo. Yeah, the money is sweet. Can't lie about that. 500 USD is like 500K now. That's crazy. So there are lots of possibilities. I saw a role today for a cybersecurity technical writer for $850 per month. But that's for like 4 different articles in a month. And the pay on the tweet was $850. So the money is there. You can do the work. And I believe you'll be more than ready after this training. I believe so. I think I would. Elizabeth said, must the topics be on the same programming language, or they can be on diverse subjects? They can be on diverse subjects. But don't do something too simplistic, so you can test your strengths properly. Because if you write about something that is simple, it's very possible that no one will want to read it because obviously it's something that people already know, which is why I frown upon using content like how to use Google Chrome and all those things, such topics as proof of work, because everyone that is remotely interested in technical content or anything knows how to use a browser, right? Unless in cases where you are explaining like a hack you discovered, right? Like a hack you discovered while tinkering with your browser or something like that, right? You can write about that, but surface level articles like how to use Google Chrome, 5 tips on this, 5 tips on that, is not like you won't be able to test yourself properly, which is why I focus on these days. Because another thing with AI revolution is that technical technical writers that don't know how to explain technical concepts properly, like in depth, are going to be wiped out, because they can just hire one person to just sit down with ChatGPT Plus and start churning out content. It's that easy, which is why I make it like a rule of thumb for me to only focus on like add stuff. I only write about add things. If you go through my proof of work, they are like in-depth articles. Most of my articles are not less than 2,000 words. I go as far as 5K words at times. So yeah, just try to write about something deep that you know that okay, this thing. Because for example, yeah, um, for example, the um when I had this task to to give to give them 5 topics and I can write about and all of that. The topic I wrote about, they paid me for it, right? It was just a test. So they paid me for the article. They paid me 100 USD for the article. But then I felt like this article, I can't post it for free. So I pasted the topic to a blog, to a technical blog, and those ones paid me 500 USD for it. So that's like what you get when you write about complex stuff, because nobody will pay you anything to write about how to use Google Chrome, because Google Chrome on their own hand is also like Google Chrome developers are working on Google Chrome to be able to like a 5-year-old can use Google Chrome. So you don't do such content. Just go like look for ad topics. If I want to pitch an article, it's so bad that if I want to pitch an article, I'll search for it on Google. And if I read 2 articles that covers the concept deeply, like deep enough that I know that okay, I enjoyed this article, I just strike it off my list. But that does not mean I should not write about it, but it will just reduce the room for rejections for me, which is why I've never pitched an article that did not get accepted. Every single one of my pitch. So just try to do that.
Hello.
Uh,
So I have a question, yeah.
Okay.
So for some of us that are not that do not have programming knowledge, because for me, I'm a digital marketer, so I do not have knowledge about programming and stuff. So does it mean we cannot write as we cannot work as technical writers unless we have programming knowledge and stuff like that? Also, when you said some of your content are like 2000 words, I mean, does it not get, is it not like lengthy and get boring at some point? Because most people would not like to read lengthy content and stuff like that.
So 2 questions, right? The
Yeah,
first
yeah.
one, for digital marketers, how do you go about writing technical
Yeah,
content?
yes, technical content. Like, how do we go about it?
Okay, let me take that first. As a digital marketer, what is like the hardest thing you've done that you believe that it's not common? Like you worked on a task, like maybe it's figuring out SEO or things like that, that you feel that when learning about it, you felt like, wow, this thing is hard. So think about such things and just write about them.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
so like any hard thing you've done, anyone at all that you believe that okay, this thing is hard. Like you know that okay, this thing is hard. Just write about it. And trust me, people are going to read. One of my for the lengthy articles, right? I usually don't care about the length as long as I know that this thing is going to solve like problems. That most of my friends that review my articles for me, that I send my articles to, they take like 3 days to read the article. But when they come back, first they notice almost no problems with it, right? Like they just feel like, okay, this thing is detailed, this thing is comprehensive. Another one is even senior developers that have been building projects for years, they learn new things from every single article I've sent to them. Everybody learns something from an article. Every single person I've sent my articles to. So I just make sure it's worth the time, right? One of my longest articles was an article about regular expressions. So if you have like the most any knowledge about regular expressions at all, it's like a very, very, very complex subject that most developers don't learn except they need to. And I pitched it, I already checked and there's not much online that covers it in a way that I know that I'll be able to cover it, right? So I wrote the article, it will be around 4,000 words or 5,000 words, thereabouts. And if I tell you that that particular article is the single one I've gotten feedbacks from, like a lot. Like people reach out to me for like, oh, this article is so comprehensive, like because I go into like the nitty-gritty details. Like I look out for what, like when I read other articles, yeah, I check for things that the person did not cover. Then I try to like cover that particular thing in my article. So one of such articles is Go the regular expressions article I wrote on Golang. So regular expressions, I will not want to confuse you, right? So Google is a leader in the tech industry, right? Everyone knows that they create programming languages from scratch. They have like 4 public programming languages, if I'm not wrong, and they have several ones in-house that they use internally. So Google created Golang, right? And I already wrote about regular expressions in JavaScript. So I felt like this would be like a breeze when I write about regular expressions in Go. Like it would just be like the same thing. I'll just like I felt like it would be like a breeze easily. I'll just be able to write about it, like finish it in a day or two, right? But when I got into the details, because remember, I started learning Go in March, if I'm not mistaken. So I just got into it and I saw that Google has like a whole different implementation on how regular expression is done within Google and in every one of Google's programming language, because they created Go too. So Golang uses Google's specification of regular expressions. And I checked for every single article I saw online. No single one covers like that major difference. You know, in JavaScript, in PHP, you can use like the same regular expressions to do the same thing, because regular expression is like a standalone language that you can use in different programming languages, right? But in Go, Google created like a version, their own version of regular expression, right? Their own version is like the same concept, but different implementation that most regular expressions that you just use in other languages would not work in Go. And I checked every single article I found online. None of them covered those differences and how to work around them. Because Golang for most people is usually like second language or a third language, as it is for me. It's like my third language, right? So I considered that and I felt that, okay, for someone coming from another language, I should explain the concepts in a way that they can replicate the regular expressions they use in other languages in Go. Like, okay, there are some things that are not supported in Go that are supported in other languages. And I just try to like explain it so people can easily use it and get that detailed explanation. And believe me, it will help people, because people don't focus on such implementations, like in-depth implementation. I have to read 4 very, very technical articles written by the person that developed the implementation of Google's technical regular expressions, right? So they had like a lot of reasons, like normal regular expressions are vulnerable to security attacks and all those type of things. So they created a safer version. That was the reason for the whole new implementation. So when you consider such scenarios, cases, and you explain your concept or your content in a way that you cater to such people, trust me, it will help. Which is why, even though my articles are usually that long, you will not find images in them, because I know that this person that is reading this article needs to solve a problem that is probably biting them in the ass. Excuse my language. But yes, that's what I don't care about. People tell me, oh, 1,500 words, this, that, that. So that is that. You help people. Okay, time is going. Let me just end that with this. In May this year, I got an article request from one of the companies I work for. It was a project-based article, like build a CRUD application in PHP, right? They told me to build it in PHP and they gave me 1,200 or 1,500 words to write about it. But usually I disregard the word counts and I just write the best article I can write. So they gave me the word count and I didn't use it. I would not lie. I just did the article in a way that I know that every single detail is included. Because imagine setting up a project, explaining how to do certain features, not even 1 or 2 features. You're explaining 4 different features and you are going to put the code in the article. Keep in mind that the 1,500 words article includes the code that I'm going to write, right? So I just disregarded the word count and I did the most comprehensive article I could do. And another thing is I needed to like deploy the article because the client for the article was a server company like that, one server hosting company. Yeah. So I needed to like host the deploy the project, and I need to like explain everything. So I did my best to keep the word count to around 3,600 words. Then I submitted. So they read it, they reviewed, they removed a lot of sections, a lot of things, like they dismantled the article, they broke it into pieces, removed some certain parts and everything. But I kid you not, they ended up with around 3,000 words because they also felt like this, if we remove anything from this thing again, this article would be useless. Like that's just the word. It will be useless because people will not be able to use it. Right. So they have to like review, remove parts. They have to like remove the deployment part self. The deployment part that I explained the step-by-step process that I can use to deploy the project on that server hosting website. They removed everything. So they were able to cut it down to 3,000 words, and they felt like, okay, if we remove anything else, this thing will be useless. So what they did was they thanked me for using my intuition to write it that way. Then they gave me a bonus of 50% bonus on the price. So that's what you get for writing like detailed articles. You get more pay. I've written articles that the company had to like break the article down into 3 different articles, and I got paid for 3 articles instead of 1. So if you focus, I think that's my own major selling points because I do like my best to do the best I can do. Yeah. So far I've been getting value for it. I'm not like. So I think I hope that answers your question. Who asked the question again? I think it was Sumachi.
Yes, it answers my question. Thank you.
You're welcome. So I believe that will be the end of today's class. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. And I'll be expecting your topics and your questions for the next class, because keep in mind that the next class will be focused on the questions you sent to me. So I'll be answering those questions in the next class. So do well to compile them and send to me. So there's a message. Hold on my trackpad. You're welcome, everyone. The recording.